You got to know the network. You got to do some research, and because all networks and platforms have mandates, so they look for certain genres of films and types of films. So, you can't, like BET, like romantic comedies and suspense thrillers, female-driven. You're not gonna go pitch them a gangster movie. This is not what they do. Hey, this is Coke Daniels. Catch me on this week's episode of I Do Film with Cardellia Hunter.
My next guest is someone who does it all and gets the job done well. He has written, directed, and produced 9 movies in the past 2 decades. Movies that have been distributed through major platforms like Fox, Lionsgate, Miramax, and more. He's the brain behind the 2004 hit comedy movie, My Baby's Daddy, and more recently, Karen. I Do Film family, please welcome Coke Daniels. Hello, Coke.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here.
Yes.
I know that this is going to be a good conversation.
Yep.
But, before we jump right in, let's do a little icebreaker. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Coke or Pepsi?
Neither, actually. Sparkling water.
All right. I'll take that. Directing or producing?
Definitely directing.
Movies for everyone or movies for the culture?
There's a saying that says I do one for me and one for them.
All right. I like that.
Yeah.
Independent productions or collaborations?
Independent.
His, her, or the truth?
It's a combination of all three.
Okay, good. Speaking of his, her, or the truth, that's a project of yours from 2019, but you've been in the game much longer than that. How did you exactly get your start?
Well, around the early 2000s, well, late 1900s, as they say, early 2000s, I had a child, and some friends of mine had kids around the same time, and we all started going through the baby mama drama, as they like to call it. And I was like, this should be a movie. But at the time, I was a hip hop artist. I wasn't in the film business at all. And I talked to a couple of people I knew that were writers, and they told me the same advice that I give writers that talk to me now. I was like, I can't write your story, write it yourself. So I picked up a couple of books on screenwriting, got some software, and wrote what became My Baby's Daddy. And I just fell in love with the whole filmmaking process. And it's crazy because I look back, I've always been a big film fan, but never thought of it as really like a career until I was inspired to tell a story that was like true to form on things that me and my friends were going through, and it turned into a big studio production and Miramax Pictures and Eddie Griffin. I mean, I gotta always shout out Eddie Griffin. He took a chance with me and really pushed that film through to make it happen.
Wow, that's good. So I was going to ask, how did you get your big start? But I see that.
I just wrapped it all in one for you.
Absolutely. That's how you got your start. So My Baby's Daddy. You remember the song? That's just my baby daddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any?
No, I think the film, I believe, predates that song.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Now you're talking about it. So I know what your scope is behind your first movie. What's the story from when you first pitched your first film?
Again, it's all points back to Baby's Daddy. And, I wrote a script initially, but I had never written a script, so it obviously wasn't the best structured and put together. So we did go and pitch like a bunch of studios, me and Eddie Griffin. We started with production companies. We pitched like 10 different production companies, and we ended up doing it with Immortal Pictures, Happy Walters' former company. And, from there, we developed another script that was kind of different from the one I originally wrote. And that was pretty much it. I mean, that's really been the only thing that I pitched and then set up, because after that, I just moved more so into independent filmmaking.
Yeah. So I was getting ready to ask, and maybe we answered a little bit. How many projects did you pitch before they got greenlit?
It's so funny. That was it.
Wow.
It's an amazing story. Like, even the people at Miramax, when we were doing the film, they were like, oh, so Coke, how many other scripts have you written? I'm like, this is the only one. They're like, wait a minute. You wrote one script and you're on the set of a $10 million film with all these big stars. And I'm like, yeah.
So did you know then that this is it?
Yeah, I did. But I knew I was just a writer on My Baby's Daddy. And I didn't like the process of how the writer kind of gets shoved to the side. I thought, getting into film and being a novice, I was like, okay, I'll write the script. I'm telling my story. But it got revised so many times, and they brought in a director that put a whole different spin on the film, which art is subjective. So a lot of people love the film. I just didn't like the process of not being involved and it really being my voice. So that's when I moved more so into like independent films and stuff like that. I never I've never looked back. I've never done a studio picture since then.
Why
I've
not?
done them all independently and then set them up for distribution.
So that you can keep your creative the way you
Exactly.
want it to
It's
look
too
like.
late. They can't
Yeah.
change it. It's like, here it is. You want it or no?
Take it or not. Here we go.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for those wishing to have something greenlit or someone wanting to pitch to a network?
You got to know the network. You got to do some research, and because all networks and platforms have mandates,
Mhm.
so they look for certain genres of films and types of films. So, you can't, like BET, like romantic comedies and suspense thrillers, female driven. You're not gonna go pitch them a gangster movie. This is not what they do. You know what I mean? So you got to know what that network's looking for, and if you don't have that kind of project, then you should probably develop those type of projects they're looking for. So yeah, it's a dance, and they're not always right. It doesn't mean just because a network or a platform doesn't want your film when you pitch it doesn't mean it's not a good film.
Right.
And if you go that route and you really believe in it, and you're getting passes and things like that, then do it yourself.
Yeah. So I guess the takeaway for the ones who want to get out there and, pitch their project, know your audience, know
Yes.
your studio house
hmm
so that you can make sure you're ain't out there.
Yeah, do your research, man. I'm a student of the game, and a lot of people, I feel like creatives, especially, we get so far in the creative bag, we don't really know the business. Like, you should take your time and really research, companies.
Right.
And ask questions. I just was fortunate enough to really have a lot of distribution relationships where I would ask the right questions.
Mhm.
I would be like, what kind of film do I got to do to get on BET? They were like, do a romantic comedy. That's when I did His, Hers, and the Truth. I was like, okay. And BET bought it after the fact. The funny story is BET actually passed on it when it was sent to them as a script. And then they picked it up at ABFF. And Brett DeSmuke, who's a good friend of mine at All Black, he caught her, just snickered at him, where he was like, you do know you passed on this film, right? You remember this, right? So yeah, so again, that's another example of, like, just because you pitch or send your script and it gets passed on doesn't mean it's not a viable project,
Mhm. So what does it mean about someone getting a distribution deal? What does that look like?
Well, usually there's different ways you could go about it. How I've done my films, which has been advantageous to me, is I do licensing agreements. I finish them, then I license it to BET for X amount of times. Then I can then license it to a streaming platform, then license it to, Redbox, different windows. They're called windows. Like, so that's, I actually just got the rights back to Who Made the Potato Salad and Gangster Rap, two of my early films, and now I'm redistributing them. So the best way to go about that is a licensing agreement where you have a certain window that they have the rights for, and then eventually the rights revert back to you.
Okay. Okay. So
But whereas if they finance it, they own it
okay,
in
that's what I was
perpetuity.
getting ready to say.
Yeah, they own it in perpetuity. If they cut the check and produce it and finance the whole production, then they own it in perpetuity. It's theirs.
But because you are the independent, you put it out, you have your distribution deal. I mean, that's a lot of strings
And they have
coming from different platforms.
Yeah, and they have
that you
a
can
shelf
move
life.
around.
Like I said, Potato Salad, that was my first film that I actually directed, and it's amazing that 15 years later, it still has a huge fan base and audience. BET is streaming it now, and it's on their network as well. So yeah.
Yes. Have you ever wanted to produce for TV?
Yes and no, but I'm so stuck in the independent mindset. It's so hard for me to be a work for hire. I'm unemployable. So that's, the ups and downs of being independent. You get stuck in the rut of, like, you don't want to have to answer to 10 different executives now. And I mean, there's an upside to that. There's a lot of money in television. So yeah, I think eventually I will, but it's gotta be, I have a lot of respect for Tyler Perry and how he handles his business. It's gotta be on my terms.
Absolutely. So speaking of Tyler Perry and the way that he does things, you kind of have a model too. You like to write, produce, and direct all of your bodies of work.
hmm
Why is that?
Honestly, it's been out of necessity. Like, I haven't, I would love to collaborate with other writers and filmmakers and stuff like that, but I just haven't formed the right kinship or found the right project. I actually have a couple things that I'm developing now that are written by other people. So I am open to collaborating with other people. It's just I haven't found, the right project at the right time, I guess.
So by being this independent filmmaker who wears all of these hats, what would you say is probably one of the most difficult obstacles that you have to overcome?
There's so many.
Mhm.
There's so many. Obviously, raising funding is not easy. Then on the flip side of that, making sure you get people their money back, because that's how, as an independent filmmaker, you keep working, is you make the people their money back and then they want to invest again, or other people understand, okay, those people made money with you. I want to put some money with you. So, I mean, there's so many obstacles, man. There's like, I literally, my next film, The Water Boyz, we just finished wrapping production yesterday, and we shot most of the film last summer. But it's just been a lot of like, QC is involved with that film. It's a lot of moving pieces to that film. So it's just, one of my sayings is new levels, new devils.
Yeah.
So it's always a challenge. There's a million challenges. There's never enough days on the shoot schedule. There's never enough money. There's never enough footage. I'll shoot a film to the end of time if I have my choice, but you gotta at some point just say, all right, it's done, time to move on.
Yeah, we're going to get to Water Boyz in just a few minutes, but to kind of backtrack a little bit, one of the obstacles you said is funding your project.
Mm-hmm.
Are there certain parameters? Like, how do you go out and get funding for your project? And the way you go get it doesn't mean that it'll work for somebody else, but what have you felt like has been like the blueprint?
Having a distribution plan and an exit strategy of like, not everybody thinks, every independent filmmaker thinks they're making the next Moonlight or the next Precious or the next, Oscar nominated film done on a micro budget. But you got to be realistic and always have an exit strategy. Right. And with the films like the past, other than Water Boyz, that's a little different thing. But the past 3 films I did prior to that, I already knew BET would buy them. So I did, other than Karen, they did a licensing agreement before we went into production. His, Hers, and the Truth and Fruits of the Heart, they bought after the fact. But, have an exit strategy to make sure, again, that you do good business. And I've lost money. I've lost money in films. I've made money in films. So I'm not saying every time I hit it, but I learned from those mistakes moving forward to say, you got to always have an exit strategy for your film. You got to know the audience. You got to know that there's a distribution plan in place for the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, like you said, you lost money and then you gained, even when you lost the money, you still gained something from that experience.
Yeah.
So it's always forever evolving into your next project. Karen, how did Karen come about?
It's so funny. It just was, it was during the pandemic, people were out protesting in the streets and all this stuff. I had my 2 younger kids with me, so I couldn't participate in that. So I was just like, what could I do to voice my outrage? And I was like, you have one of the best vehicles to express something like that. And I was just exercising one day, actually, and it just hit me. My films usually start with a title first. And I just was like, Karen. And I wanted to do a suspense thriller because I had done mostly comedies up until then. I wanted to do something a little more dramatic, but still, in a sense, satirical. I think a lot of people didn't understand that about Karen, where they thought I was going hard edge suspense thriller. But if you know me, I'm almost like an out of work stand-up comedian. So it was like dark satire is what I would label it as. But I thought of the title, and then I did a lot of research because I'm like, you can't tell me nobody's doing a movie called Karen right now. Like, nobody. As soon as I seen that nobody was doing it, I just went in. I wrote the script, sent it to Brett Dismute. He's like, Coke, I love this, but I ain't got enough money for you. He said, let me take it to BET and have them partner with us on it, and we'll do the deal like that. And so that's what happened. Sent it to BET. They loved it. They, gave us a licensing agreement for the film, and we went and did it. And I knew it was gonna have an impact, but I had no idea it was gonna do what it did.
Yeah, wow.
Like, all the media coverage and TMZ and every CNN, Newsweek. It was crazy.
Wow.
It's crazy, yeah.
Wow. I guess you shocked your own self.
I shocked my own self. And I was laughing all the while because I'm just looking at the backlash. Obviously, some people hated it, some people loved it, but everybody had an opinion. And I think it served its purpose for me. It wasn't just a money grab. It was like, let me say something about racism in America in my own way,
Right. So some movies, some features, your audience like, some don't. How do you handle that criticism?
I don't care either way.
Yeah.
Art is subjective, you know what I mean? And some of the most beloved filmmakers have done films that have performed, not performed. Nobody really knows what a hit movie is, I mean, other than, Steven Spielberg is one of the greatest of all time. He's made some great films. He's made some not so good films. So I don't really, I have a short memory span as it relates to criticism and things like that, because I just move on.
Right.
I'm like, I did Karen and move on. People come to me like, why don't you do a sequel to Karen? I'm like, no, I'm over that. Like, I'm on something else now. So I don't take the praise to heart, and I don't take the criticism to heart. I just try to stay balanced and humbled and be blessed and thankful that I'm able to do what I love for a living.
Yeah, absolutely. Water Boys.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Probably don't want to, you know, let too much out the bag,
Yeah.
but it's a buzz here
Yeah.
in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And so why Water Boys, and what are you hoping this film tells?
Well, when I moved to Atlanta about 8 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember seeing the Water Boys out on the corner, and I just was fascinated by it. Because I'm like, kids in LA would never stand on the corner in that heat and sell water.
Oh, no.
And so I was already fascinated by them. You know, fast forward years later, after I did Karen, I wanted to do a crime drama. So I'm like, you know, what could I do? I was like, oh, Water Boys. That would be great. And then as I did more research on them, it was really interesting to see the kind of money they're making. Like,
Yes.
you know, these kids make $300-$400 a day sometimes. And the ones that I am kind of not, you know, part of, but associated with and kind of consulted with is Water Boys in the Hood. So I, you know, talk to those kids a lot, and just, it's a fascinating thing that they're doing. And it's really positive, and it's a shame that the media just gravitates to the negative stories. Because a lot of people, when I said I was doing it initially, were like, oh, somebody needs to do something with those knuckleheads. And they're not all like that.
Yeah.
They get a bad rap. Like, these kids are starting businesses. They're incorporating. They got LLCs. Like, that's the story I wanted to tell.
And so any of the kids in the movie?
Yeah, they did. I had a couple of them do some cameos from Water Boys in the Hood, Kai, and I forget the other young man's name, but they're really, really good kids. They're out in LA now, BET Awards.
I know that's right.
They're out there selling water and selling their merch, and them kids is hustlers, man. They're doing right.
Yeah, well, it's like you have given them a voice to tell the story the right way. Because like you said, everybody wants to portray them that they're just on the corners, but look, them some smart little kids.
But we do, and we show both sides, though. Because we do show the knuckleheads, too, because that's just the reality of it. I wasn't going to paint the picture of, like, all the Water Boys are just good, because some of them aren't, you know what I mean? But the story we're telling are from the more positive kids. You know, our lead character is trying to get into college. He's trying to, you know, his mom is struggling, so he's trying to pay his way to get into college and get a car, so that's why he's out there hustling.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, does moms get any little homage up in this film?
Yeah, Lala. Lala plays our lead character's mom, and she did a really amazing job. I think people are going to be really impressed. Like, Lala is serious about her craft. You know, people, I don't think they understand that there's some people that make the transition from being, you know, social media celebrities or whatever, and they start acting, and people are but she really impressed me. I mean, I knew she was good, but she did a great job.
Oh yeah, I like Lala.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your mantra or your saying that you live by to keep you going?
The journey is the reward.
The journey is the reward.
Because it is. When I look back, all the struggles I went through and everything, it made me who I am. And it makes me appreciate things more, because I remember when nobody would finance my films. Nobody wanted to hear me. Nobody, and even after I'd done a few films, people really weren't hip to me in the industry. Like, so I just, you know, that keeps me grounded. And when you work for something, you treat it differently.
Yeah.
A lot of times, you know, and especially people of color, we're not given anything in the industry. So when you're able to sort of rise through the ranks and reach a certain level, and I'm only at a peak. I ain't at the mountaintop yet. Like, I don't think I've made it. Like, I'm in a better place than I was, but I have other goals and aspirations.
Yeah. Earlier, you said when I asked you movies for everyone or movies for the culture, you said you do one for you and then you do one for everybody else. Can you elaborate on that?
That's actually something I heard George Clooney say once, where, you know, he does, you know, studio films and he does independent films, you know? So sometimes I do films because you got to keep the lights on.
Okay.
So I do things that I know are easy to sell and pitch and things like that. And then sometimes I do things outside of the box that are for me and for the culture, like Water Boys, you know, where I know that's very niche, you know, because a lot of people, especially my California people, they're like, what is a Water Boy? Like, they have no clue. So that's kind of what I meant. Like, I do things that I still like. I never do any films that I don't like just for money. I can't do it. So, but I do things that I know are easy sales. And then I do things that are a little more difficult. You know, Water Boys is definitely going to be challenging, you know, even distribution wise, because there's not really comparables to compare it to at this moment. You know, there hasn't been a really good urban crime drama in many years. So, you know, and that's what, you know, Hollywood and the system in general does, is they compare. Like, what is it like?
Allah.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Well, you know, Water Boys for you and for the culture, that means it's going to be big.
Yes.
So we can't wait to see that. Yeah. So what advice would you give filmmakers on protecting their work?
I'm not one of those type of people because I tell people all the time it's a rare situation when work gets plagiarized or stolen
Mhm.
because there's so much liability to that. So, you know, if you write a script, register with the Writers Guild, keep an email chain. You know, always email people stuff with your script attached, so you have that record of you submitting it to them.
Mhm.
But those, I'm not one that I've had people do similar films as mine, and I never like, oh, they stole that from me. I'm like, it just the most brilliant ideas are the simplest ones. Caring.
Yeah.
Like this simple stuff like that. And there were other films in development that were Karen type movies that obviously had shut down after we put our film out. But yeah, just keep a paper trail. Don't be afraid to if you ball your fist up, can't nobody take nothing, but can't nobody give you nothing either.
Mhm.
So it's like you can't just be like, you could do the NDAs and all that, but it's kind of like, I get turned off when people ask me to sign an NDA.
Yeah.
Unless there's a check attached to it. If
I
you're
know.
saying, read my script, but here,
Yeah.
sign this NDA, I'm like, these are two requests all at once. So yeah, just WGA costs like $20 to register your script.
WGA, right?
Keep a paper trail, email, electronic, text messages, just keep records of who you're submitting it to and who you talked to and when it was submitted and things like that.
Mhm.
But it's rare though. I don't know anybody personally who's had their, film stolen or stuff like that. And then when you're in post-production, be diligent over who you're sending your drives to, at what stage, because the films are all stored on hard drives now. So I'm very particular on who has access to the drives. And when I'm dealing with editors, I give them the death stare. Like if this film leaks out,
Okay.
I know where your mama lives.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Coming
So
for you.
yeah, you just gotta, that's more scary to me than the film getting stolen. Like that'd be like the worst nightmare for somebody to put out a half-finished bootleg version of one of my films.
Mhm.
So that's important to protect your hard drives too once you got it in the can.
Yeah. So talked about WGA.
Mhm.
We're in the middle of a strike.
Mhm.
How is that affecting your productivity, your production?
I mean, I'm
if
an
any?
independent filmmaker, so it doesn't affect me per se,
Mhm.
because it's more so, and I really feel for my fellow WGA members that are television writers and things like that, where
Yes.
they're out of work right now
Mhm.
and they got mortgages and, private school tuition and all this stuff is expensive. But I do agree with the Writers Guild stance on it because we do deserve to eat off the streaming. Because the last time the strike, it was over digital.
Right.
It was over like iTunes and stuff like that, where they were like, oh, we don't make any money on that anyway, so why do we have to give you? So that was the issue then. But yeah,
Yeah.
because I love my residual checks.
I know.
I need that 1.5% or whatever the hike is they're asking for. So yeah, I stand in solidarity with the Writers Guild, and I'm not working with any networks or anything right now, but I'm writing stuff independently, which I'm allowed to do.
All right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
That's how Tyler Perry gets to keep going too, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's his own
Everything.
government.
Yeah. Yes, he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for new filmmakers out there, especially in the in Atlanta,
Mhm.
or I should say the state of Georgia, the Southeast region,
Mhm.
what 3 tips would you give for upcoming filmmakers?
You have resources at your disposal that you could go make a film with iPhones, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Get a hold of some equipment, start shooting, study the game. Look at other filmmakers that you look up to, you like their work, read about their story. How did they get there? How did they accomplish that? Be resourceful, build a team,
Mm-hmm.
build your own little village of people that are going to support your vision. If you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. So, build a team, keep your name and your reputation good, and take your time.
Yeah.
Pace yourself.
Yeah.
Like in this fast food culture that we live in, people want it all now.
Yeah.
I want to do a film tomorrow and want to be rich next week. Like it doesn't work like that. You're going to have to, there's no elevator. You got to take the steps.
Yeah. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Your story is unique because you didn't go to, a school to become a filmmaker. You're self-taught.
Yeah.
And was there any director that you kind of was like, ooh, like a Spike Lee or John Singleton? Like, where did your style come from?
There's a saying, I think it was Steven Spielberg said that you steal from the best. And so all the people you just named, and then I'm a big Alfred Hitchcock fan. Wes Anderson, Coen Brothers. Like I just studied their work, and it took me a long time. Like when I did Who Made the Potato Salad, that was my first film I directed, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
The first day of production, the cinematographer's like, "Where you want me to put the camera?" I was like, "I don't know. Where do you want to put it?" He's like, "Do you want to rehearse the actors?" "Oh, they're good." They laughed at Ella Joyce. I remember she laughed at me like, "Huh!" Like it was. I got jumped in the gang essentially on Who Made the Potato Salad. And, but with each film, I would look and I'd be like, okay, what could I do different? Then I would look at Martin Scorsese films and people like that, and I'm like, what do I love about what they're doing, and how do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why do my films not look like their films? And then I learned, like, okay, camera moves. There's more camera moves. They're moving the actors around more within the scene, and just different things that you learn. So I learned by doing films, But if I had the opportunity to go to film school, I'd have went. So I'm not one of them people that's like, I didn't even have to go to film school. Like, it's not something that I like brag about, or I didn't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I was already, because early in life, I was a music artist. So my college years were behind me already by the time I started doing films.
Okay.
And then I looked into it and it was like $100 and something thousand. I'm like, where's that going to come from? Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to have student loans and things like that. So, but if I had a choice, and I tell young filmmakers, they'd be like, well, you didn't go. Why you told me to go to film school? Because you're 18, 19 years old, 20 years old. Like, what else are you doing right now?
Yeah.
And you're not gonna. John Singleton was a unicorn. To be 21 and direct a Oscar-nominated film out the box, like that's rare. So you're gonna have time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could afford it and take on the debt and things like that, I would definitely advise it, because you don't want to be on set and say dumb stuff like you don't know where to put the camera.
Or no, we don't need to rehearse nothing.
We don't need to rehearse. They got it. They're good.
Yeah, but that's
so. I'm more of an actor director, because I'm a writer. So I'm more so into the performance, and I had to learn through time to get more into the technical aspects. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not a camera nerd like that. Mm-hmm. Like even now, when I do my shot list, I put pictures from films so I could show the DP to be like this, because he'll be like, "Well, what's the lens size? I don't know. Here, I want to shoot them right here. Shoot this. You know what I mean?" So.
Wow, that's neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So listening audience, upcoming filmmakers, go to school.
Go to school.
Go learn your trade.
Or just, and if you can't afford it, YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, you could learn anything you want on YouTube. There's a ton of great filmmaker tutorials that teach you lighting and cameras and lenses and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. YouTube is our best friend.
It is.
No one can say they can't do anything.
That's right.
Because YouTube teaches us how to do everything.
Yeah, YouTube. And when I want to check my health, I go to Dr. Google.
Dr. Google.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Dr. Google, that's my physician.
Mm-hmm. I love it, Dr. Google. Yeah, so what's next for Coke Daniels?
I don't know. I'm so focused on finishing Water Boyz right now. Like, I don't like thinking what's next. I think that's a big mistake a lot of filmmakers make, is they just, because you got to. Mm-hmm. You only eat what you kill. So it's like you got to a certain extent always have your eyes on something else, always be moving. But, when you are trying to create something special, it deserves, just like you said, the Water Boyz, especially to people in the South, like it's a big deal. Yeah. So it needs to be handled with care. Yeah. So I've got a bunch of scripts that I've written already, things that I want to write. So I haven't really, and what's so funny is, like, even with Karen, I had 3 other things I was working on at that time. I'm gonna do this film, no, I'm gonna do that film, and then Karen came to me. I just dropped everything. So it's that's just my mindset. Is like I try to, early in my career, I spent 2 years finishing films, because I just can't let it go until it's done to my liking. So yeah, I haven't really locked in on anything else. Why, you got something?
Water Boyz,
you got something for me?
Yeah. No. Everybody's looking forward to seeing Water Boyz come out. But that's good to know, because I think that's a good gem for others to know. You have so many different ideas. Yeah. And just hone in on that one that you're, it shows right in the midst of.
It shows. You could tell when you look at films, and the filmmakers are meticulous with their work, and they take great pride and care, and you could tell, as opposed to people that just rush through things. Because unfortunately, filmmaking is like, when I was a rap artist, everybody started rapping. Like when I was younger, rapping, it wasn't a thing that people really did, because it was so difficult to do. But as time progressed and different, styles of music came out, everybody felt like they could rap. Yeah. And that's kind of where filmmaking is now. Like, because of social media and the technology, everybody's a filmmaker. Yes. But so they don't really respect the art of filmmaking, and it is an art. And like I said, I had to learn that the hard way, of like, why don't my films look like these films that I love? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, and then you look and you learn and you grow.
Yeah.
And I still, there's stuff I'm still learning. I learned something on every film
Yeah.
that I applied the next film. Well, I'm like, yeah, you messed that up. You didn't get enough insert shots. You didn't, wasn't enough camera moves. And it was too many camera moves. Like, why, what was this camera move for? You didn't need to do that, you know? So.
Just learn and go. So, film festivals, how important should a filmmaker concentrate, or I won't even say concentrate, how important is it for a filmmaker to try to get their works shown at a...
Well, it's the same thing almost like we talked about pitching networks. You got to, first of all, you got to do a film that's festival worthy. Those are different types of films. And it doesn't mean that they're not good films, but festival films are very unique in their approach. You know what I mean? And, you know, to be honest with you, ABFF was a big part of my career. Jeff and Nicole Friday, His, Hers, and the Truth. We took, because, you know, I kind of reinvented myself when I came to Atlanta of like, I was just doing films that I liked and that I go play at my cousin's barbershop in the hood and everybody would laugh at. I thought that was great. So then I started setting new goals, like, you know, you really need to do films that attract a wider audience and get in business with the bigger players like BET. So we did His, Hers, and the Truth, went to ABFF, BET picked it up, and then that's how I built a relationship with them. And now actually 4 films I did with them because, like I said, they licensed Potato Salad. So that all came from the film festival. But the way I put His, Hers, and the Truth together was very festival, independent film looking, down and dirty, really good talent. So yeah, you got to make it's very important. It's not necessary, but it's important. It's a good way. It's one of many ways you can get yourself out there. Because I mean, there's so many different ways now.
Yeah.
People are blowing up off social media things they do. Look at Issa Rae. She blew up off a YouTube, you know, show that she did, and there's a million different ways. You gotta figure out what your method is. So, but yeah, festivals. Yeah, I speak highly, especially at ABFF, man.
I love
I love Jeff and Nicole. To this day, have a very good relationship with both of them. We have some stuff that we're doing together eventually at some point as well.
Yeah. Can't wait. Yeah, that's one of my go-to festivals.
Yeah.
ABFF.
Because it's ours.
To see us.
It's ours.
I was just about to say that.
And there's no other, there's other Black film festivals, but ABFF is the biggest one.
Yeah.
And they really embrace the culture and they really nurture their filmmakers.
They really do.
You know, like I said, I have a relationship with them now, and they have, you know, production deals around town and stuff like that. So they're great.
And it's just one place where it doesn't matter if you're the actor, director, everybody is just fitting right in. It's just one big happy family.
Yeah.
So earlier you mentioned that, you know, you leave things where they are, but now we're in this era of rebooting. How do you feel about that?
I don't really like it. Just to be transparent, I think that, especially as of late, a lot of the things, and it's not just me, the audience has spoken.
Yes.
You know, who asked for this?
Yeah.
So I don't, and I know there's a methodology there's a method to that for distributors because they already own that content. So they don't have to deal with difficult people like me when they develop it. They essentially hire you to reboot something they already have. But and it's crazy too. Some of the films that they've rebooted lately weren't even that big back in the day. It's like, so it depends. Like I am considering doing a stage play for Who Made the Potato Salad.
Okay.
So that kind of interests me. That's something we
so
talked earlier. That's something that is kind of intriguing to me now is doing plays because that's just a totally different world. It's more vertically integrated.
Yes.
Where I can control more. You know, because that's a big thing with me is like I like to control all facets of my art, from distribution to production and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I don't like you know, again, I've been asked about doing a Karen sequel and stuff, and I'm just like, no.
Gotta make sense.
Nah, I'm in a different space.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been done already, and we explored it to its fullest extent. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the reboots. I can't even think of a modern one that's been rebooted that I really care for.
So what about Bel-Air? It's totally different from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You know, how do you feel about that?
To be honest with you, I haven't watched that show.
Okay.
But I did see, because it got picked up based on somebody created the trailer.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very, very interesting. I think that would intrigue me more so than rebooting or remaking, to put a modern spin or a dramatic twist on something that was comedic. I thought that was clever. Yeah. But I haven't actually watched the show, so I can't really say how it's. I think they're on season 3 or something, or is it still on there?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So if you had unlimited resources to make any movie that you wanted, what would it be about and who would you cast?
One of my dream projects that I would love to do is something centered around Black Egyptians. Because they've whitewashed every Egyptian story that they tell. And
Absolutely.
clearly those people were not Caucasians back in those days.
No,
So Elizabeth Taylor is not my Cleopatra. But yeah, I would like to do something like that and just involve the biggest and brightest stars in the Black community, and show something different. Like, I'm really tired of the slave narrative. That's not our only history.
Yeah.
That's not Black history. That's part of our history, but we have such a rich history that hasn't been told. So yeah, it would definitely be something centered around Black Egypt.
Yeah.
Couple $100 million budget, and really something epic like Gladiator, 300, something like that. But with our faces in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know that. I know Alpha Phi Alpha would love that.
Yeah.
They say look to the east. Water Boyz.
Water
It's gonna
Boyz.
be big.
It's gonna be big.
It's huge.
Quavo did his thing in it. It's
Yeah.
I was really impressed with him. It's and I really wanted to make like a love story for Atlanta.
Mhm.
Like, really, like yesterday we went out and we just was all over Atlanta picking up just the abandoned houses and that side of Atlanta. And just Atlanta's like 5 different cities though.
It
like
is.
you go over here, it's
Everything.
trap houses and that, then you go downtown, it looks like you could be in New York or somewhere, and then you go out in Buckhead and feel like you in Beverly Hills. And so yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why, we're number one when it comes to location.
That's right.
We can, and then you can come out, I'm not going to say what side of town I'm on, but you can come out there and live with the horses and the cows.
Exactly.
And all that other good
Exactly.
And, just a great place to come and, green light your projects or just film here. Yeah.
Yeah, the city just welcomed me with open arms, man. So I always want to show love to Atlanta. Obviously, I'm born and raised in LA. Love
Yes.
LA to death, but I'm here now.
Yeah.
So
I forgot we had that in common.
yeah.
Yeah. Born and raised, but I've been here forever. So
Yeah.
I'm a golden peach.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Yes. Well, I appreciate you coming on with me at I Do Film, Cardellia.
Yeah. Appreciate
We are
you having
looking
me.
forward to Water Boyz, but let's kind of go back right quick. How did you pick your staff? I mean, who cast? Did you cast for Water Boy?
I'm really hands-on when it comes to casting.
Okay.
But I work with a lady out of LA named Michelle Lewitt.
Okay.
She's really dope. She obviously makes suggestions and things I don't think about, but I'm like, went after Quavo. I wanted Quavo. I wanted Achille McDowell. He plays the lead from Oprah's David Makes Man.
Yes.
Lala. Actually, my manager, Cameron Mitchell, suggested Lala, and I was like, I never really thought about Lala like that, but I was very pleased with her. She was a sweetheart. Like, she called me directly and was like, I'm a big fan of your work. I love to work with you. Let me know if you need anything. If my agents start tripping, here's my number. You call me.
I know that's right.
Yeah. So she was amazing. Yeah, but I'm very hands-on. I usually have specific people in mind. And then there's a young man in the film named Antoine Walker that's going to be a huge, huge star. And he came just through casting call.
Really?
So he's somebody that I didn't know from Adam. I seen his audition tape, and I just didn't even read that role anymore.
Okay.
He was that good.
So up and coming.
Up
You're
and
giving
coming.
him his shot.
And I love it. That's my favorite thing to do is discover talent. I've given a lot of people their first looks in films. I'm not gonna.
Why
Okay.
not need to be the grocery store? Wait. What's your favorite film?
That's so hard, man. I have so many of them.
Mm-hmm.
You're not talking about my films. You're talking about other people's films,
I'm talking
right?
about other people's films.
Everything Martin Scorsese does, for sure.
Okay.
Casino, Goodfellas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like I said, that's a hard question. Like, even I couldn't even give you a top 5. I have so many films that I love. There's so many great films, especially older films.
Yeah.
Hitchcock. I love everything Alfred Hitchcock did.
Yeah, you mentioned him a few times.
Yeah. Hitchcock. That's why I call myself Hitchcock.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So, favorite director?
Probably Hitchcock.
Okay.
Probably Hitchcock. Spike is up there too.
Okay.
Spike is amazing. I love Barry Jenkins.
Mm.
He's just really getting started, but he's done some amazing work already.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but I would say Hitchcock probably would be my number 1.
Okay. Well, this was good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Learned a lot. This was really great.
Yes.
I
Appreciate
learned a whole lot.
Yes.
We're looking forward to seeing Water Boyz.
Okay,
All
cool.
right.
You get invited to the premiere.
Oh, I'm gonna be there.
Yep.
Thank you. Can I get the red carpet?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Yeah, we'll
what
take
I'm
a
talking
picture and
about.
everything.
You guys heard that now, right? Red carpet and a picture.
Yes.
So tell my audience how they can keep up with you.
Official Coke Daniels on Instagram, and my website is flixvillusa.com, and that's FLIXVILLE USA.com.
You hear that, audience? Check them out. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that's a wrap for us today. But make sure you tune in every first and third Tuesday of the month to catch more jewels on I Do Film. Follow us on all social media platforms at I Do Film Atlanta, and don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. I'm your host, Cardellia Hunter. Thank you for joining. I'll see you next time.